All right, let's go ahead and dive in. So my name is Curtis Miles. I am a technical specialist with IBM, focusing on the areas of integration, healthcare integration, and also decision management, which we'll see some of that through our demonstration today. So what I want to do today is I want to tell you a story about somebody named Rachel Wilson, and we're going to watch Rachel's visit to the hospital. Okay, so she's going to Brook Valley Wellness Center, and she's coming in to have some surgery. She has a benign cyst that she's going to have removed. And so what we're going to see is we're going to see 4 different points in her journey. So first of all, we're going to watch as she's admitted into the hospital. The next thing, we're going to take a look at what happens when there are some blood tests that are requested for her post-surgery while she's recovering. Then we're going to watch those blood tests actually come in, so the results will be available to us. And then ultimately, at the end of the day, we'll discharge Rachel and everything will be okay. Well, we're going to look at this through a few different angles. What you're looking at right now is just a little application that I created so that we can send HL7 messages through the system to be able to detect and play with those messages and do different things with them to be able to integrate. So these are these 4 messages that you see on the left-hand side. So the admit message is the ADT A01, observation request is an ORM O01, observation result ORU R01, and then obviously our discharge is an ADT A03. So these are the messages that we're actually going to send through the system through this little simulator that I built to be able to inject them in. The other view that we're going to have of Rachel's journey is that of her primary care physician, Dr. Karen Bloomfield. Dr. Bloomfield actually has an iPad. So at Brook Valley Wellness Center, all the doctors have iPads that help them to track their patient lists and do various things. And so that's this. So whenever we see this view, this iPad view, this is Dr. Bloomfield and what she's seeing. And of course, on the iPad, she can do some interesting things. So she has, maybe just some options to basically set her status to unavailable or end her shift, etc. She also has a message center down here, which is where we will see throughout the demonstration different information popping up, different messages coming in to get her attention as different things are happening as a result of the integration that we're building behind the scenes. Okay, so this iPad application is Dr. Bloomfield. Another view that we'll see is that of an integration developer, right? So we've talked about these 4 different HL7 messages that we'll be playing with today that are related to points in Rachel's timeline. Those HL7 messages are going to be sent through IBM Integration Bus. So this is our healthcare integration platform. They're actually not just healthcare, but our integration platform in general, but certainly here we'll see it in the context of healthcare. And so for that view, I want to switch over here and show you this. So this is what we call the integration toolkit. This is where we create message flows and things that allow us to integrate applications together. And this is where we will start to show the different things that we can integrate once we've got access to the HL7 messages that we'll be sending through the system. Okay, and what we're going to show today is how, based on these 4 messages coming in, we can integrate with decision management, for example, to detect patterns of events that maybe we're expecting to see but haven't seen. We'll see that specifically with related to test results. So when we order the test and if it's not back in the time that we're expecting it to be back, we can send an alert, we can send a notification through our integration platform. We're also going to integrate with our business rules environment for analyzing the test results that come back themselves and looking for abnormal levels that were detected as part of the blood tests. Okay, so a bunch of things that we've covered already that we'll be integrating today, and let's go ahead and dive in and see it in action. So the very first thing I want to do is I want to select admit patient here, and it gives us the opportunity to pick what patient it is that we want to admit. So let me pick Rachel, and what you're seeing here is an HL7 message. Now, maybe some of you are familiar with the format of these messages, maybe some of you are not, in which case this probably looks scary and crazy. But what this is basically a set of segments that each of which has a bunch of information inside of it to indicate pieces of data such as Rachel's name, right? So here's Rachel's name in the patient information section. We have information about Rachel's next of kin. We have information about Rachel's primary care physician here, and a lot of other pieces of data. Here's an encoded set of information related to the ward and room and bed that Rachel will be admitted in. So the very first thing that I want to do here is I want to go ahead and submit this message. I want to send this message through our integration platform, and we're going to keep our eye on Dr. Bloomfield's iPad app to see what happens when we send this message. Okay, so let me go ahead and click send. Okay, so that message has now been sent. So let's switch over to the iPad view. And what do we see? Nothing. Actually, we didn't see anything different. Nothing special happened there. Nothing changed on her screen. And the reason for that is because we haven't built the integration into our integration platform to say that when an admit patient HL7 message comes in, that we can take that information and start to use it and farm it out to other places that might be interested in knowing about that, such as Dr. Bloomfield's iPad application. So let's go behind the scenes now as an integration developer, and let's add that integration into the system so that next time when we admit Rachel, which we'll do again in a second, we will actually see that pop up on Dr. Bloomfield's iPad so that she knows that Rachel is now in her care. All right, so let me switch over here into our integration toolkit. The integration toolkit has a number of different things, many of which we won't have time to cover today. But what I want to do is I want to open up what's called a message flow. So the message flow kind of forms the backbone of the integration platform. And I'm going to open up this one. And it's really just an example of a number of different things that you can do inside of a message flow, where you are stringing together different nodes, different kind of activities along the way that you want to occur at various levels of detail. So here you can see we're doing some TCP/IP communication, so potentially very low-level things. And then we are parsing the HL7 message specifically here. Here's where we're tracing it, so we're writing a copy of that message out, in this case to disk, so that we can kind of get some visibility into what's happening in our flow. And we're acknowledging that we've received the message up here. What I want to focus in on this is message router subflow. And you can see that it's a branch off that main flow here. What this allows us to do is, as the message is flowing through the flow, we can divert it and start to look at special cases where we might want to take certain messages and use them for some additional things, such as notifying iPad applications that new patients that we're responsible for new patients as a physician. So I'm going to double click on this message flow, and it gets down into what currently is a very simple flow. So it doesn't actually do anything. It has an input node, it routes, but it doesn't actually choose any specific place to route to, and then it goes right to the output. So the very first thing we want to do is we want to update this flow, which actually was running when we admitted Rachel as a patient a second ago and nothing happened on the iPad. We want to update this flow so that we can send that notification to our iPad. So what I'm going to do is make some space here in the middle. And after I make some bit of space, because that's where we're going to inject not just the ability to notify when a patient is admitted, but we'll continue to modify this flow throughout our demonstration. We can add additional integrations into the story. The next thing I want to do is I'm going to drag and drop some capabilities from my tree over here. So you can notice that we went into flows before, but we have other pieces of reusable components that we can start to assemble together as we're building these integrations very quickly. So the first thing I want to do is I want to take out my prepare notification, because that's the first thing that we want to do, is we want to be able to prepare a notification. So there's my prepare notification step. And I also want to send that notification to the iPad application of the physicians. And for that, we're going to use a protocol, something called MQTT. MQTT is a very low latency, guaranteed delivery protocol that would be great for things like communicating out to iPad applications and receiving information from sensors and medical devices, etc. So IBM Integration Bus and the Integration Toolkit has first-class support for MQTT. So let me bring this subflow here to published with MQTT. And now I'm just going to string these together. Okay, so let me take this first one and connect it up to prepare notification. I'm going to go from prepare notification. It has a bunch of different terminals that we can come out of. I won't go into the details of what that is, but ultimately I connect these up into my flow, and I now have my updated message flow, which is going to prepare a notification. But I haven't yet said what messages I actually want to route through this particular flow. Now there's only one flow, so I could set it up to be the default. But let's be a little bit more specific, and we'll add additional things to this as we go over time. So if I click on my route message node, I have the ability to specify patterns of things to look for in the content, in the message that's coming in, to decide which direction I want it to go on the way out. So let's add an example of this. And when I add, I can specify this a number of ways. I can type it in here if I know the filter pattern using XPath. But if I don't know the filter pattern, I can click Edit. And inside of my tree, I can take a look at, let's just add this here. All of my HL7 nodes are available for me. So I'm going to pick out the MSH node here. And I can drill down through my tree to find my message type segment, because I want to route only ADT A01 messages, and it's the third segment of that, so I can double click and then it appears, and I can type it in to say that I want specifically to call out this ADT A01 case. Hit finish. Choose the output terminal that I want this particular case to go through. So I've created some in advance just so we have them available here. So I've got my ADT A01, hit OK, and I'm finished. So I've now updated my flow to route ADT A01 messages and do these second steps. We'll dive into more details of these things later, but prepare the notification to publish it out to my mobile application and then be finished. I'm going to save my flow, and I'm going to deploy the parent flow, so the one that was actually calling this, our destination application. Choose my healthcare node. And it's deployed. Okay, so now let's come back to our little simulator here where we get to admit Rachel. And I'm going to shrink this down just a little bit so that we can at the same time see the mobile application here in the background. And let me go ahead and press our button to send that message again. And this time you can see that Rachel has now appeared on the iPad app, and Dr. Bloomfield is now aware that Rachel is in her care and she can proceed. Right? So we've just done our very first HL7 integration. Right? So we have taken out this ADT message as has been flowing over our integration platform, and we have routed it additionally through some new nodes to send the notification via MQTT, this low latency protocol, out to our mobile device so that Dr. Bloomfield has awareness of Rachel. Okay, so our first success. Okay, that's great. So let's keep going. What I want to do now is take a look at our next part of the story. So at this point, if I click on observation request, and again with Rachel, what we see here is the HL7 message that corresponds to a test request, in this case for a CMP, a comprehensive metabolic panel. Right? So we're doing some full blood work here on Rachel. Maybe Dr. Bloomfield felt that while Rachel was recovering from her surgery, that she, something was just off, and so she wanted to kind of get a better picture of what that might be. So this is our HL7 message that we're going to send through the system. Now, if we send it right now, nothing would happen because we haven't done anything specific with this type of message, like what we just saw in the first place for the admit message. So what I want to do now is come back to our message flow, and if we dive back into our subflow, we're going to add an additional case. So right now we are preparing the notification and we're publishing it. But what I want to do this time is I want to take another subflow related to detecting overdue tests, and I want to drag and drop that onto our canvas. And this time, when we receive a notification, an ORM 001 notification indicating that there has been a test that has been submitted, we are going to send it through this subflow, which if we dive in, we can see what's inside of the subflow, that is going to take information about the test from the message. It's going to set up an HTTP call, and it's ultimately going to send an event to our decision management infrastructure, another component that we've got in our system here, that allows us to detect patterns of things that are happening and notify when we have detected one of those patterns. So specifically in this case, we're going to be looking for the pattern that is a test request message being sent out without a corresponding test result within a certain period of time. And what this will identify for us is situations where a test is overdue or taking longer than it should. And in this case, we're going to go through the same machinery that we did before. We're going to notify Dr. Bloomfield on her mobile device so that she can decide what she wants to do in this case. Okay, so if I come back up to my message router subflow and I connect up here, we're going to take the ORM 001 node, connect it here, connect this up into our prepare notification, and again we have to specify how to identify to go down this path versus the other. So I click on route message, and then here's the one that we added before, so let me add a new one. And I'm just going to paste this, and this is, so paste that for our ORM 001, and we're going to go out our ORM 001 pin, and we are finished. So we have just now added the ability when we receive an ORM 001 message, which is these, that a test has been requested, it will route it through this particular subflow, which will send out an event to our decision management infrastructure to detect that this pattern has or hasn't occurred, so when we can detect this overdue message. And in this case, what will happen is once we've detected that pattern, I've currently got it set to a 15-second threshold. So our test results should come back in 15 seconds, or we're going to get a notification on Dr. Bloomfield's device that something is delayed. So we've saved our message flow. I'm going to go ahead and deploy that. Okay, so our new flow has been deployed. We'll come back to our simulator. And here you can see this is our ORM 001 message that we're going to be sending. When I hit send message, I will, let's go ahead and click that, and I'm going to switch over to the iPad, and if we just wait about 15 seconds, we should see, if we don't get a test result in that time, a notification pop up. And there we have it. So sure enough, there's our notification after 15 seconds. It tells us that the test result for Rachel, and it tells us exactly what the test is, when it was submitted, how long it has been so far, and what the expected date was, etc., etc. So it's information that is now we've made available to Dr. Bloomfield through our integration platform that she didn't have before, right? So this ability to take HL7 messages, pull out the valuable information inside of them, and start to integrate them with other applications, not just our mobile device, but our whole detection platform for identifying when we had seen this pattern of a request without a response. Now, as a result, Dr. Bloomfield can do various things. So maybe she wants to take action on this, so she wants to forward it to somebody in the circle of care, so the set of physicians and other healthcare professionals that are part of taking care of Rachel. So if she clicks on forward to circle of care, and we can see here a visualization of Rachel's circle of care, and so here is there's Dr. Bloomfield, there's us, and we have the ability here to select somebody that we actually want to forward this to. So to follow up on this test result, let's forward it to Billy. He's one of the clerks. When I select Billy, what's going to happen is it's going to send a message to Billy's mobile device, and it's actually, because we're using MQTT with guaranteed delivery, we can track whether or not Billy has received that message, and we can see the status of it. So I'm going to click on Billy, and now you can see the little yellow dot in the corner saying that we have sent the message, but it hasn't been received. And now as it turns blue, we can know that Billy has received the message, and if we just wait, that notification will go away. So we can be confident through our integration platform and the messaging capabilities that are embedded within that Billy has now received that notification about the transfer of that request to follow up on the delayed test result. Okay, so we're moving right along. Let's come back to our home screen with Rachel. You can see that we're still pending test results here in the status for Rachel. So let's go ahead and send those test results. So if we come back to our simulator and we click on our observation result for Rachel, we'll see our most complicated HL7 message of the day, and that is our ORU R01. So this is the message that's indicating that there are test results available for the comprehensive medical metabolic panel. So here's the definition of the test that we did, and if we scroll down, you know, there's lots of crazy things in here, but let's just take a look at where we can see the actual results themselves. So we have the OBX segments that indicate the different levels that we have detected for the different components of our test. And so these will become important, because what happens here is we're going to go back into our integration flow, and we're going to add the ability to investigate and take out these test results that we have just received, and we're going to run them through our business rules engine to decide and to give us some decision support to call out specific things that maybe Dr. Bloomfield should be aware of as she's interpreting these particular results. So whether levels are outside of a particular range, and even combinations of factors that together might indicate a risk of something. Okay, so right now our flow doesn't do that because we haven't added that particular path through our HL7 processing, so we'll go ahead and do that now. We switch back to our flow. If we double click on our message router subflow, so here is where we left it a second ago. So we're detecting our overdue tests, but we're not yet processing or analyzing the test results that we're getting back. So we're not doing anything with those ORU R01 messages. So for that, we'll take another subflow. Let me drag and drop that onto our canvas. And there's our analyze results with business rules subflow. And just like we did last time, we'll hook it up to our route message node. In this case, it's an ORU R01, so you can see the nodes that have already been used here. So we'll hook one up to the ORU R01, to the incoming. And the same thing as last time, when we receive the test results, we want to be notified on our mobile device. We'll follow the same, reuse those same components on the other side to send the information out to the mobile device. This time, let me click here to see what's inside this analyze results with business rules flow. You can see we're doing a few things. So first, we're extracting information from the test results, so taking the data specifically from the HL7 message. So if I open up this map, this what we call map, you'll see that I have the ability to visually identify and pull out pieces of information from the HL7 message. So here you can see all the different segments of the HL7 message. On the right-hand side, I'm converting it, I'm transforming that message into the format that I need to be able to call my business rules engine. So you can see I've got test results with quantities and risk levels and things like that. So I'm going to move a bunch of information from my HL7 messages. So if I follow this all the way down, these messages are fairly large. You can see here that I'm pulling out patient information, right? So I'm getting the name and information about the patient as one piece of data. I'm also pulling out information from my OBX segment, which is where we saw those test results, right? So each of these OBX segments, I'm doing it for each of these, pulling out information such as the value type and the units and the observation value, etc. And that I'm going to put into my destination message that I'm going to send to my business rules engine for it to make a decision as to whether there's anything inside of this test that we need to be concerned about. Okay, so that's diving into our map, and so that's what that component means. It's a transformation from one format to another using a visual drag and drop style of interaction. Because I'm calling this my decisions as my business rules as a web service, I create a SOAP envelope, and then I have my web service call, and then I process my results on the way back. Okay, and that's all that this subflow does, is it sets up the information, pulls out the HL7 data, sets up the call, and makes the call. So if we come back to our parent flow, and we set our conditions for when we want to follow this particular path now. So I click on my route message node, and I'm going to add a case. Just paste this in. So our ORU R01 message, and in this case we want to go at our ORU R01 node and hit OK. Let me save that flow and deploy it. Okay, so now we are ready to process the ORU R01 test result messages. So if we come back to our simulator, I have my message ready to go. I'm going to go ahead and send that. When I send the message, we should see a notification pop up on the iPad. So sent the message. And so switching over to the to Dr. Bloomfield's application or iPad app, we can see that there, sure enough, is the notification. So we see the message here that says, oh, well, okay, a combination of low calcium and high potassium might indicate a particular risk factor for a particular disease. We see that the calcium level is below normal and the potassium level is above. So let's just take a little quick peek behind the scenes to see what the business rules look like that evaluated the test results to come up with those particular findings on the results. So if we switch gears over into what we call the decision center, so this is part of a product called IBM Operational Decision Management, our Operational Decision Manager. And what it is it's a business rules and the business events engine. So the same as this is the same capability that we saw to detect the delayed test result. But it allows us to take a look at, let me log in here, take a look at the business rules that we can use to determine how we make decisions. So in this case, if we click on Explore, looking into our Brook Valley business rules, we can see that we've got business rules that are broken down, and this is just a very simple case, but we've got what we call a decision table that evaluates blood test results, does the risk evaluation for blood test. And if we expand that out, what we can see here is I've created a decision table that allows us to take each of the different factors that are part of the CMP, the Comprehensive Metabolic Panel, and identifies the thresholds, below which, above which, etc., something is considered normal or abnormal, and what message we want to show in the case where we've detected one of these types of blood tests. So that can work on an individual factor-by-factor basis, but I've also created another business rule that shows us what we can do with combinations of factors. And so I've kind of just created these two simple risk of disease business rules. And if I open that one up, you can see that this business rule says if all the following conditions are true, if the reading level of calcium is low, and the reading level of potassium is high, then we can add this note to our findings, which is a high severity, to say combination of low calcium, high potassium indicates a risk factor for disease A. So this business rule was actually what was evaluated by our integration platform as we were going through that message flow, taking that ORU message and now routing it through this business rule, so that when we came back with our results, you can see that here is that exact piece of text, right? That message that was determined by our business rule is now put up as a decision support for Dr. Bloomfield as she's analyzing the results of Rachel, right? So just something to help her along the way. It's not going to, not pretending that this is going to do all the diagnosis for you, but at least it can automate some of the capabilities to bring things to the attention of the physician to make a final call. Right, and so Dr. Bloomfield could here forward this result onto the circle of care or open the results to look at it in more detail, et cetera, et cetera. But she has received the notification and she now knows that the message is available. Okay, so we've seen a lot actually in just this little time that we've spent so far. So we have seen the ability to deal with a number of different HL7 messages. We've seen the ability of our integration platform to take these messages, route them, and help us to integrate with other systems that can provide additional value. So just to close off our story, let's send one more message through our system, and that is our ADT A03. So Rachel's going to be discharged. So maybe these blood results came back and Dr. Bloomfield decided she just needed more sleep. I don't know what it was, but let's now send out our discharge message to indicate that Rachel is ready to go home. And you can see here's our ADT A03 message in here for Rachel Wilson. Pulling out some of these pieces inside of our message. Now in this case, we don't really have anything special to do over and above what we did for our admit. So let's come into our message router and let's just add one more line here from our ADT A03 over to our prepare notification. Say we wanted to be able to take these discharge notifications as well and make sure that they're published to the mobile app. So like I did before, I will come in and I will add the case for this new message. And we'll route it to our ADT A03 pin. And we are ready to go. We'll save our flow. And I can go ahead and deploy that. And let's go one more time back to our simulator here to send our discharge message. And when we do that, what we should see, let's close our notification from before, we should see Rachel disappear and she'll be discharged from the hospital and Dr. Bloomfield's app will be updated. So we send the message and sure enough, on the app is Rachel's gone. So that's a lot of information to cover in a very short period of time, but hopefully you saw some interesting value points come out. First of all, very straightforward to create the message flows that take HL7 messages understood natively by the IBM Integration Bus integration platform, be able to route those and use that information for a variety of purposes, right? You saw an example here of integrating with a mobile application. We also saw the example of integrating with decision management, both for the business events to detect the delayed test result, and also for business rules as we're evaluating test scores or test results specifically for the blood work in this case, and just lots of possibilities for the things that you can integrate with IBM Integration Bus.